I thought my app was fast. Server components, check. Following the best practices, check. Building a fast API, check. Deploying on a cloud platform like Vercel, of course. But yet I noticed something weird. Every time I switched tabs, it kept refetching the same data over and over again. And turns out, Next.js re-renders dynamic segments by default. And I was wasting precious seconds on data that hadn't really changed at all. At first I thought maybe I will ask AI to rewrite my logic, but the actual fix was way simpler than I expected. So here's what's actually happening. This is a analytics dashboard for our website, and it displays a bunch of different information about the website, such as the number of visitors, revenue, bounce rate, a nice little graph for us, and also quick insights that we could toggle. For example, if I press this week, then it's going to display this week's insights, all the visitors for this week. Same thing for this month. It's going to display all the visitors for that month and so on. And each of these insight pages, such as this month, or let's say this week, or let's say today, each one of these are server components and they are rendering server components. So what's going on is Next.js is rerunning the same server component over and over again, even though this specific data hasn't really changed. For example, if I press this week, it's going to refetch this week's data. If I press this month, it's going to refetch this month's data all over again. Why? Why does this happen? Because by default, server components in Next.js are going to re-render every single time unless you explicitly tell Next.js to cache it. So why waste your call's precious few seconds when you can easily cache it? But here's some good news. There's a simple way to control this. We have a config inside of Next.js called as stale times. It is an experimental feature, but what it does is it enables the caching of page segments. What this means is, since we don't really need real-time data for these insights, we can cache it briefly using the specific property stale times. So you can control for how long will the dynamic segments be cached, how long will the static segments be cached, and so on. Since we don't really need real-time data for these insights for our dashboard, we can cache it briefly using the specific property. So for example, right here under experimental, we can set stale times, and here we can say dynamic is going to be 30, and this means it's going to cache for 30 seconds. Let's do a hard refresh to apply the next config changes because we made changes in the next config file. And now this week has been pressed. If I go back to this month, obviously it's going to refetch it because it's the first time it has fetched the data. If I go to this week, it did not refetch the data. The data was already there. Now, same thing if I go to this month, the data is already there because the user has already gone ahead and cached that data. The data was in fact pulled from the cache. It wasn't recomputed because it's still fresh. Now, the benefit of this is that this improves perceived speed and reduces server load. And it's especially useful in a dynamic segment context whenever you have data that doesn't necessarily change at all. It doesn't necessarily need to stay fresh to the second, so you can control freshness per route with granular caching controls. Now, the stale times feature might go away and it will in fact be replaced with something called as dynamic IO, which is again an experimental feature inside of Next.js, and it works hand in hand with the use cache directive from Next.js, which again allows you to mark a route, a React component, or a function as cacheable. You can totally use this, but keep this in mind. This is only available in the Canary channel, and this is an experimental feature, so definitely keep that in mind. But you can essentially cache it at file level, component level, or function level with this specific feature. Now, we build projects just like this one, just like the analytics dashboard, in my modern full stack Next.js course, in fact launching next month. So if you want to learn how to ship fast modern apps just like the analytics dashboard, then definitely get on the wait list and get access to the course. And I've also written a really long blog post on this specific topic on how use cache works with a really fancy interactive demo as well that you should definitely check out if you're interested in learning more about use cache, and I will link that down in the description below. Now, with these specific granular caching controls, you don't need to refetch data every single time. And if you're building something at scale, this specific optimization is going to help you build a really fast Next.js application, and it's going to help your performance a lot.